All right, well, welcome everybody to another Hangout. I'm Trey Ratcliffe. Hello. We're going to do all kinds of stuff today, talk about all sorts of things in our little variety hour of sorts. We've got a great collection of interesting people here. Let's just kind of surf through here, see who everybody is so I can introduce you. First, in square number one is the great Alfie Goodrich. Hello, Alfie. How are you?
Having trouble aligning my camera, but don't take that as some measure of my creative skills.
Or your camera skills, I hope.
Camera skills are terrible, obviously.
So you are in Tokyo, Japan, yes?
I'm in Tokyo. It's nice and hot, and it's daylight, which seems to be the different thing about me and all of you guys.
Well, tell everyone what you're up to there. I know you pretty well. We spend a lot of time together, but nobody else does. So why don't you give people the little nickel tour?
Okay, I teach photography here. I shoot freelance, various things, editorial stuff, commercial photography, and some more creative things. But yeah, photography is my life. It's what brings the money in most months. But it's all I do now.
Cool.
Yeah, so at the moment, just planning a few shoots and trying to catch up after a little bit of a more relaxing weekend.
Good. Well, I'm jealous that you're over there. I feel lucky to have been out shooting with you many times. So you are a great photographer. I hope people go check out your work. You have another website called Japanorama or something like that?
Yeah, Japanorama is where I put up things that I hope will be of use to people I teach and anybody who wants to learn anything about photography. But myname.com, alfiegoodrich.com is another website that just has a few pictures of mine. Go to Japanorama, you'd find them all.
Cool, excellent. And let's move over to Beau. How are you today, Beau Kehler?
I'm doing very well.
Good. Give us the scoop on Beau.
Well, my name's Beau. I live in Fort Collins, Colorado, and I'm a HDR photographer. I also shoot weddings and portraits for two other photographers here in town and do a lot of shoots. And basically, photography rules my life right now.
Good. That's good. And you're pretty hardcore Google Plus user like me, aren't you?
I am. I'm addicted to Google Plus. I love it, and I use it every day.
Awesome. And now you, Dano Hart. Tell us about you.
DanoHart.com. That's easy to remember, hopefully. I live in Florida. It's nice and hot and humid right now. More of an amateur photographer. I just bought a 7D not too long ago. I just fool around with it. I like to have fun with it.
Excellent. And hello, Keith Barrett, my ever-present friend that records and streams it live. How are you?
Fine, Trey. Thanks for having me here.
Sure. How's your new studio working out?
Hopefully it's going to hold together. It's working well.
Awesome. Well, I pointed a few people your way. Those people that do the cooking hangout where they cook live, I told them to talk to you because I know they like to stream and record, and I thought you'd be a good resource for them.
Cool, thank you. I'd love to.
Sure, no problem. I made you sound really busy and really talked you up. So
this is a busy week for some reason, but hopefully it'll lessen.
Yeah. And now, Lotus Carroll, how are you, Lotus? Where are you?
I'm good. I'm living in Austin, Texas, the best place to live in Texas.
It is a good place down there.
It's great.
So, I know who you are, of course, but why don't you tell all the good people all about you?
I'm actually an old school mommy blogger. That's my little internet fame thing. But a photographer by passion, and so I'm just always photographing everything I see. So I don't have a real specific type of photography I enjoy the most, but just kind of documenting everything.
Yeah, I think I bet all the photographers in here would gladly say the same thing, that I think we all like taking pictures of everything, even Beau Kehler, who kind of categorizes himself as an HDR. I bet he's like me. He just likes taking photos of everything, but you become known for something and you kind of end up, even though I think all artists hate to be categorized as like, oh, there's Lotus, she's a mommy blogger, right? Like this one-dimensional person, right? But you're actually this complex person that has all these various things going on, right?
Right,
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah. I maybe I'm projecting a little bit, and then I hate to be categorized, so I assume other people hate to be categorized too.
No, there are a lot of people who dislike it. It doesn't really bother me so much because I know who I am. But I mean, I guess I do a lot of self-portraiture and I do a lot of nature photography. So, I mean, if I was going to categorize myself, that would be where I'd put myself.
All right. And now you, Melvin Little, how are you tonight?
I'm doing all right. How you doing?
Good. Where are you from?
I'm from Indianapolis, but I reside in Decatur, Illinois right now.
Okay. You're a photographer?
Yeah, I'm a part-time photographer, but what I mainly do is I'm a consultant, and I do a lot of marketing plans, and I design job development programs for people that are formerly unemployed and things like that. So I try to get them back. I design active programs to try to get them back into the workforce, which is not easy, but it's rewarding at the end of the day. But I've been addicted to photography and pictures for about the last 10 years. And it's like I was at a conference Friday, and I left the actual dinner so I can go outside and just to catch an autumn photo. You know, I'm kind of like, I'm addicted to photography as if, you know, someone's addicted to drugs or something. It's kind of bad, you know. I shouldn't have did that, but I couldn't help myself.
No, I know how it is. Your real life sounds much more noble than anything I do, but I know what it's like because you're doing something else, but you're thinking about photography. You're like, how can I escape from this little situation and go take some photos and get back to my real life, you know?
Yeah, it was like a $75 dinner, and everyone, you know, had a big speaker there, and the only thing I can think of, I was actually texting my mom saying, hey, is it starting to get dark outside yet?
Yeah, I know. We're always painfully aware of when that sunset is, aren't we? It's just kind of eating away at us if we can't be there.
Yeah, but I was a lot better afterwards after I got my shots I wanted, and then I actually went back in there. You know, I was a lot more cohesive because I was almost like I couldn't sit still because I thought I was going to miss it, but I didn't want to leave out too early.
Yeah, I know that feeling. You're talking to Noah about the flood. So, hey, Michael Riffle, how are you?
I'm great. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, give us your story.
Well, first of all, I'm impressed that you got my last name right. Almost never happens.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, by day, I'm a scientist at the University of Washington in Seattle, where I study biology and how proteins interact with each other. But my real passion is photography. So I like to get out as often as I can to the 3 national parks here and do landscape photography, seascape photography, mountains, and so on. Yeah, that's pretty much it. My main hangout online is actually on Google+. I'm one of the few people who actually hasn't been on Facebook yet and started off with Google+ as my main social network. But I'm also on Flickr, and actually hadn't heard your name until I got onto Google+, and I went and looked at your pictures, and then I realized that I'd seen some of them before in the past, and they were actually some of my inspiration in really getting going in photography. So,
oh, well, thank you. You're like a paid plant in this hangout. Thank you. And Mike, how are you? You are from Google.
Yes.
Tell us about you and this sort of thing.
So I work on Google security team, and that's like I have a lot of fun with my job. But you know, when I'm not in the office, I'm hopefully have my camera in my hand and getting to travel around, going up to Napa Valley and Yosemite and all the great places that you have in California. I think my biggest complaint is that I don't actually ever get out to go do that as much as I want to. So that's kind of where I want to be able to focus more of my time, hopefully real soon.
Excellent. We had a good time at the photo walk the other night at Stanford after the Google talk. Yeah,
that was a blast. I think we went out, and then we went out for dinner afterwards, and I was up since probably about 6:30 in the morning, and I think it was about nearly ready to collapse at the end, but people were still shooting. I think some people actually stayed there into the wee hours of the morning, continuing to shoot after we even left. So it was a great time. Did we break the record for largest photo walk? Did you?
I don't think we did. I think in Austin we got like 210, and in Stanford we got about 200, so we were close.
Okay.
We didn't break it. Lotus, you were at the Austin one, right?
I was there.
Awesome. All right. Well, you still got the record.
Sweet.
Mike didn't get it.
Damn it.
And me, I now it's my little block's turn, I guess. I didn't say where I was. I'm actually in a cool place today. I'm in Hollywood, California, and I am staying inside Tom Anderson's second mansion.
Wow.
Tom is the guy that the MySpace guy, and we've gotten to be friends. And he says he's got this extra mansion that is always empty, and he offered it up. And so later I'll give you guys a little tour of it so you can see what he did with all that MySpace money. It's just ridiculous. And in the last corner, we have Shirly Lo and her husband, who's always a little bit behind her and to the right. How are you guys?
Good. How are you, Trey? So yeah, we shoot
Good.
primarily
What have you been
nature.
doing?
We shoot primarily nature and landscapes, and we were inspired to start shooting HDR because of Trey.
Well, thank you for saying that. You don't have to, but what have you guys been doing today on Sunday?
We've just been on Google Plus.
No, come and be surprised. Okay.
Great way to spend your Sunday.
So let's, I guess we could start anywhere, kind of randomly. Let's start with Beau. So one thing I want to talk about today is what your, not you, Beau, in particular, but you as a group, what you're struggling with in photography, because I find that I'm always struggling with something new. Maybe I kind of get the grip on something, and then I move on to another set of problems. But it's ever changing. It's always a problem, and I enjoy hearing what other people are struggling with, and so maybe everyone else would enjoy hearing what you guys are struggling with, because we have all levels. Beau, you're well known and you've been doing this a while, but I think no matter your level, you're always having problems and always struggling with something. So that's kind of generally the topic. And so anyway, let us know what's happening in this area for you.
Well, as of lately, I've been shooting a lot of weddings, and working with the on-camera flash has been quite difficult for me. So just kind of, as you normally do with photography, trial and error. So I've been just doing that a lot lately, is shooting weddings and then figuring out the power and, the ISO and everything I need to be at while shooting weddings and low light situations.
I have a quick fix for you, sir.
Okay, let him have it. Great teacher, Alfie.
The secret with flash, period, is especially when you're mixing it with light outdoors, is to shoot the first frame without the flash on, so you know what the ambient light is doing. So you're basically trying to get a good reading for the background, and then switch the flash on, and you then have less variables less balls in the air than if you try and shoot the first frame with the flash, because we all know those three variables. We have ISO, aperture, and speed. If you shoot the first frame with the flash on, you've got 5 to juggle instead of 3. You've got flash power and flash to subject distance. So if you shoot the first one without the flash, get a good reading for the ambient, bearing in mind this kind of ceiling you have for shutter speed, where the maximum speed the camera can sync with the flash, like 250 or 200, and then add the flash in. So you're trying to get the ambient right, and then you're adding the flash, and then it's just a case of varying the power up and down.
All right.
It's a good idea. Does anyone else here shoot weddings a lot? No?
Nope.
No wedding shooters?
I did a couple. I've shot a couple weddings, and every time I do it, I'm like, I'm not going to do it again. I'm not going to do it again. It's too hard.
I used to go to my father when he used to shoot weddings, and I remember carrying lots of heavy equipment all the time and wondering if we were going to get fed.
Yeah.
One of the
Just
things
waiting
I
for the
noticed.
reception.
Is
Go ahead, Melvin.
So I was just gonna say, one of the things I've noticed from shooting weddings, most of the churches, the lighting is just horrible. Yeah, you have. So I understand what you're saying about trying to get the lighting right. I mean, well, outside is different, but inside, the few churches that I've shot inside in, I mean, the lighting was just, I mean, the lights were set up for, you know, if you're going to be on a podium, but when you actually got the brides and grooms and you're setting them up in the churches, the lighting for me was just horrible. I spent probably maybe 40 minutes trying to get my camera and my settings right, just so that I can get, you know, start getting some decent pictures.
Yeah, I mean,
low light is a real problem, and in fact that's probably more of a problem than it ever is when you have more light, because trying to balance light you're introducing when there's a situation where there's less ambient light, getting that balance right so it looks natural is really hard. So, but the big thing to remember then, Melvin, is if you're close enough to your subject, then the flash will freeze that subject kind of irrespective of how slow you get on the shutter speed. So you can even get down to shutter speeds like a tenth or an eighth of a second, as long as your subjects aren't moving, and the flash will freeze them. So you can use shutter speeds with flash, which you would never probably use normally to handheld, and you can still get sharp subjects.
So what about you, Alfie? You're one of these guys that's just, you always are able to like dispense 50 bullet points at any given time about any given topic. You're just one of these guys that just has this, you know, every possible combination and permutation of problems that might occur and every solution for every said problem. So do you have problems? What do you struggle with?
Build-ups like that is one of the things I struggle with. Well, I was just about to post a link here in the chat. So, there you go. That's how, if people click on that, it's one of the ways I deal with when I get a block. And one of the blocks is just, it's kind of creative, but it's also, yeah, just trying to figure out personally what I want to do with my photography. I do the work photography, and some of that I'm really into as much as it would be if it was my own. But then the thing I struggle with is how to keep the kind of hobby end of it for me. It's what I am, or who I am, not really what I do. So I guess that makes it a little easier sometimes, but it also makes it difficult because I'm trying to find something that just does it for me with photography rather than the stuff I like doing for clients. And sometimes if I get a block, I do what you will see happening in that Instagram picture I just posted a link to, which is I just put all my prime lenses in a circle, get a bottle, spin the bottle, and go out with the lens that the bottle chooses for a week and shoot only with that. Because I find that the thing that can get slack sometimes is the way I tend to have just maybe got a little too habitual about the way I see the world. And putting one eye on and going out for a week and shooting with that is usually the thing that can get me out of any block that I'm in. Just trying to see things through a less of a set of variables, you know. But, however, the interesting weeks are when the bottle chooses the 14 or the 300mm lens.
That's an interesting idea, just because like I always default to like usually one of my wider lenses for lots of things, but then when I need to use something, you know, a little bit larger, I'm not used to using it and whatnot because I kind of like that idea, I guess, and forcing myself to use something that's, you know, out of my norm. I might have to institute that in my life somehow or another.
I think just limiting yourself is a good thing. So it's one of the most important projects I've done with students is, especially people who've just really shot DSLRs, or they're having a second coming with their photography with a DSLR after years of not shooting film. The biggest thing is slowing those people down so they don't shoot like a machine gun, but they tend to think more about what they're doing. So going out with like a 50mm and just shooting 36 pictures, no deleting, no looking at the screen. This, you know, again, it's limiting the set of variables, but that works really well too.
Almost like you're forcing somebody back into the time when you were using film, so you were much more careful about how many times you shot and get the shot very carefully.
Yeah, totally. The thing I learned with film was how to measure exposure properly, so I would meter various things in my scene with a spot meter and maybe with the zone system or whatever. But I would take more time, and 35mm film for me ended a long time ago. Ended up shooting large format for the last 10 years. I was shooting film, so with 20 by 24-inch sheet of film, you tend to take a while to shoot that, because not only is the camera physically huge, but the film is costing like $10 for one shot. So slowing yourself down is a good thing, I think.
So Alfie, are you saying that you have a 300mm prime lens?
I do.
Wow.
It's not a brand new one. It's like an old one, but the great thing about primes is they're sharp, wide open, so you can shoot this thing at f4, and for the limited space it is sharp. It's sharp as a razor. Yeah,
that's an impressive lens. Cool. Hey, you, Lotus, tell us what you are struggling with.
I've actually been inspired to try a lot more street photography lately.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really struggling with getting out of my comfort zone and actually photographing people who are strangers.
Well, I have a whole list of suggestions, but I'm going to let Alfie answer, because Alfie is famous for his street photography. He does all kinds of amazing work, and I hope. By the way, this gives me an opportunity to tell all you guys to take your. By the way, if you're not talking, maybe you can mute, because there's a little bit of background noise. But anyway, take your blog or your website or your 500px or whatever, and don't just paste it in the chat here, because only 9 people see it, but paste it out in the main thread that I started for this live stream, and that way thousands of people will see it. Okay. Anyway, Alfie, I set you up there, so give her some tips for street photography.
Come to Japan. That's tip number 1.
All right.
I mean, seriously, I've shot pictures in the street in various places, and Japan is kind of a paradise for it, because people don't generally tend to give you grief about shooting their picture in the street here. But I think, there are various ways you could get yourself a little more comfortable, and one of them might be, if you don't own it, rent it, go out with a telephoto, because then at least you can stand off people, and you can begin to make yourself more comfortable by just getting closer and closer to them as time progresses. But I mean, getting up close and shooting people, that can be uncomfortable, even for people who do it all the time. But I think, for me, street photography is kind of like fishing. There's 2 ways to do it. You trawl the street with a big net, and that's kind of like the wide angle or the 50, or you find the best place to sit in the river, stick the bait out and wait for people to hop on it, and that's kind of like the telephoto. So maybe the best thing for you is to get a longer lens and start a little bit further off.
So I have enough space to run if someone gets really pissed at me.
Well, I mean, I've stood in the middle of a street with a huge telephoto on, pointing it at people, and I've had a few interesting looks off people, but generally turn the screen around as they approach you, and if they see something that you've taken, maybe you think it's cool, maybe they might think it's cool. The other thing, I think, don't take the camera away from your face until the person you've shot has passed you by, so it looks like you're shooting somebody else. Sometimes that can make the person who was being shot by you feel a little less conscious about, was that me they were taking a picture of? So continue to focus down the street until the people have passed by. But there's nothing really else to do apart from just throw yourself into the deep end.
I've been pretty lucky so far. Nobody has actually been angry or anything. I think the thought is just there, that when that time happens,
How quick can you run the 100?
Well,
I'm actually pretty fast.
Are there any safety issues associated with street photography? I mean, is there something that a woman needs to worry about there versus a man, or?
I don't think so. I mean, often, Michael, I've seen women in Japan have an easier time than men taking pictures. I mean, maybe there's something less threatening about a woman with a big camera than there is a guy. I don't know. But here it's difficult to tell what would be threatening, because people either they don't mind, or they do mind and they'll never front you up because Japan isn't that kind of place, or they turn the other way, or they look the other way, or they walk the other way. They take themselves out of the picture. But I haven't had any issues here with it. In terms of rights, I mean, people often think, well, do you have a right to take pictures of people without their permission? Generally, if people are in a public place, then you are okay. I mean, each country has its own set of laws about rights of reproduction and publication, but they're a little less draconian than you might think from the photographer's point of view. Generally, if somebody's in public, if you're not going to put them on the front cover of a magazine or entice people to buy a product with their image, then you're generally within your rights to shoot and even use their picture commercially.
Another thing I've done too is when people do kind of make eye contact with me and then start that dialogue, I just give them one of my business cards.
Yep.
I tell them I'm not soliciting, but I feel like that kind of makes it a little bit less creepy. I don't know.
Yeah, I think if people know this is what you do, and I don't know, I mean, sometimes I've almost felt like maybe if people thought I was a tourist rather than a photographer, maybe that would make it easier. So I think each different situation calls for a different response, but if you have the card on you, I think that's nice. And I've traded cards and email addresses with people I've taken pictures of, and I've sent them the picture, and I think having some contact with the person you've taken a picture of just makes it look like you care. You're not just trying to take their picture and run away.
Right.
That's what I was going to ask is, like, is there a typical situation that you get into where you feel led to ask them for their permission? You know, like you see maybe like 3 or 4 people on the side of the street, you know, do you feel compelled to go up to them and be like, hey, you know, do you guys mind if I just take some pictures around here? Or do you just not care at all?
Well, I do care. It's not a really...
Well, yeah, wrong choice of words in that
Maybe
sense.
about shooting first and then asking the question afterwards, because typically, if I ask people if I want to take their picture, then the moment I first got attracted to take their picture because of is gone, and it's a different picture. It's a street portrait. It's not a picture of a moment.
Right.
The biggest thing that people have, where I've had somebody look a bit kind of odd at me about what I was doing, and then I showed them the picture. The big thing has been, geez, I mean, I haven't even seen that face of my own, or I haven't seen that moment. So you've captured a moment that somebody themselves has never seen of themselves, and that's kind of cool.
Yeah, I can see that.
If you can share that with somebody, then 9 times out of 10 they'll be interested in it.
Yeah, I never ask for permission either. I just shoot away. And one of the key things is you will occasionally encounter resistance, but the thing is, don't let that resistance affect your decision to do it the next time. I think some people do it until they get a negative reaction, and then they're like, oh my gosh, I don't want any more negative reactions. But really, I don't know what your hit rate is, Alfie, but I only get rejected about 2 or 3 times out of 100. But that means I've got 97 very interesting shots.
Yeah, I mean, it's high here in terms of keepers.
Yeah.
People, I mean, I've been on the street. I remember being on the street one day in London and having the police threatened to arrest me for taking pictures of a railway station because that was suspected terrorism, even though my camera is the size of a house, and then a lady accosted me because she thought I was taking pictures of young children for odd reasons. I was taking a picture of my daughter. And somebody threatened to punch me in the face because I took a picture of them in Piccadilly Square. And the irony was, in that situation, there were like 50 CCTV cameras above our heads. And so I think every culture probably has a different reaction to something. And here, there's way more keepers and less situations of problem than I've had elsewhere. But I think if you smile, if you look friendly, if you show them the picture, try and interact with the people in a positive way, I think, most people will respond nicely to you. Just kind of human nature. If you're rarely going to, the guy who smiles at you is rarely the guy you think, well, I'm going to punch him in the head, So.
Yeah.
Sometimes if you get a little rejection, you're walking down the street and people will put their hand up or look away. It can actually make for a better photo sometimes because it adds a little bit of mystery to the shot.
That's
sometimes. Yeah, although I tend to throw those pictures away. I really want pictures that a moment I've spotted of somebody's life that is kind of maybe even heroic, spotting the heroism in everyday life of just the salaryman walking home after a hard day. So if somebody's reacted to me, typically I'm not not so fussed about keeping that picture. And I tend to try not to take pictures of people doing stuff that they would find embarrassing, or that even I would find embarrassing if somebody taking a picture of me doing that, picking my nose or pulling a stupid face or something like that. That's not the kind of thing I like taking, but it doesn't mean necessarily that that's not a picture there to be taken by somebody.
That's fair.
Hey, Mike, how about you? What have you been struggling with lately?
Well, I've been struggling with actually, I think, getting off my butt and going taking photos. I absolutely love doing it. It's just I think it's, for me, it's sometimes, well, sometimes it's just like, I think the motivation is sit down and say, I'll say on a Friday, okay, tomorrow I'm going to go run a drive, I'm going to go out to Big Sur, camp out and get ready to do pictures at sunset, and just don't actually do it. So I think my biggest problem is actually just trying to get the motivation to go out there. I want to. It's just trying to juggle time and all the other stuff that's going on always.
All right. And what are you going to do about this to fix this problem?
Well, I think sitting around Google Plus and seeing everyone comment on my photos and seeing you put photos up is definitely pushing me to make a move and actually go out there and do it. I think I'm running out of good photos that I actually want to post, so it's a necessity at this point.
Well, what about finding some friends to go shoot with?
I would love to. I think doing group photo walks and stuff like that is absolutely a blast. I've been wanting to go. I know Thomas Hawk has gone up to Mare Island with groups of people before, which is this really cool old Navy base, I guess, over in right on the bay in near just north of Oakland. And it's a great location. And I've been there before, and there's cool buildings, lots of great textures to photograph. I've actually been wanting to actually try and get a group of people together and go up there and actually get a model or someone to go out, because I want to try and get more into actually shooting people and trying to come up with a concept. And I think that's where I'm getting a lot of interest these days is trying to actually shoot someone who's actually posing for a picture, not street photography. And then I'm also doing a little bit of compositing these days, so trying to mix photos together and taking sky here and the foreground here and trying to layer it together to get the image that gives it a stronger feeling. So I think that's what HDR photography does. It gives you, it lets you convey the way that you saw the picture, but sometimes that picture's not actually there the way you want to see it. So I think there's kind of some really fun opportunities out there. I think Photoshop and stuff gives you a lot of cool capabilities, and that's kind of where I'm tending to lean a lot of time these days.
Yeah, I know what you mean, or do know what you mean. Hello, Jordan Crow. Welcome to the Hangout. How are you?
Not too bad. Is the mic okay?
Yeah, it was a little noisy when you rumbled into the room. It sounded like you were wrestling a bear on top of the mic.
I just got that out of here, so it should be okay now.
Are you a photographer?
Yes, I am.
Cool.
I'm actually based in Halifax, Nova Scotia. That's in Canada.
Okay.
I'm actually based in Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada.
Excellent. Let me ask you, Melvin, what have you been struggling with lately?
One of the main things I struggle with is when I start getting shots, sometimes I can spend up to an hour trying to pick the photo I want to use the most. And then when I start doing effects to them, sometimes I tend to like maybe 3 or 4 effects on the same shot. And then I have to pick one. And if it's just me, I guess it would be a lot better if I had someone there to help me pick which photo would end up being the best photo. Not saying that they're all great, but just to me personally, I may like one photo with 3 or 4 different effects, and I don't know which one I want to put out the most.
Yeah, it can be tough, but you get better at it over time. It's never, I think in the beginning, that is tough to pick what is interesting versus what is not interesting. But this will be something that snowballs over time, because as it is always shades of gray. If you have 100 photos, clearly there's some that are just uninteresting, and there's some that are interesting. And then there's sort of this middle zone where you don't quite know. But the more you go through this and have 100 photos, the more you'll be able to draw that line in the sand. Okay, say like, okay, these are okay, but I'm tossing them out, and I'm just going to work on these 3. That does get easier over time.
Okay.
Trust me.
Yeah,
How about you? How about you, Shirly Lo? Have you been out shooting, or are you just Google Plusing it up too much?
Yeah, so there's two main things. They say to shoot what you like so that your passion and interests show through your photos, right? And then they also say you should always try to keep growing and learning so you're not just, stagnant. But for me, I like things that bring a sense of peace, happiness, and well-being. So as far as growing, we want to probably move towards fine art, but art often means you have to tap into different human emotions, the positive as well as the negative. So we're trying to reconcile those two things that we're trying to achieve. So of course there's styles which are like hauntingly beautiful. You look at deterioration or tragedies, and there's a certain quiet beauty about it. So maybe that's a style that we'll start exploring, get more into.
That was very poetic, Shirley. I congratulate you.
Oh.
Good. Let's see if you can make Jim Davis look bad, who has just popped into the room. Hello, Jim. How are you?
Not bad. How are you?
Good. So tell us about you quickly.
Well, I've been into photography for about 25 years now, doing mostly nature landscapes. I've done the wedding thing, but it's not my style. So primarily do it part-time. I do work full-time, but I use most of my free time to go out and shoot and sell the odd print here and there, and I do some workshops. So I try and help people out with their problems that they have when they go out and buy their new DSLR.
Cool. Well, what is your workshop? How can people find out about it? I encourage people to talk about their whatever they got going on that they want to talk about. So go ahead.
Yeah, let me just check here. I'll have to put up a link for it. But in the meantime, and one of the things that I'm trying to do is to get sort of a workshop hangout as well here on Google Plus, where I'm geared towards beginner photographers, and just kind of an informal place where people can come in. I kind of go through a format that I do in my workshops on basic light composition and things like that. And then we go through a critique process where they can pop up any image they want, get a little bit of feedback on it. Everybody else can see it. So it's very important that, that everybody understands the critique part of it. And that's actually a good way to learn as well, when you can look at somebody else's photograph and see different things in it. I'll see if I can get a link here for the...
Cool. Yeah, put the link here in the chat, and also put the link on the main post where I talked about the live broadcast. That way, more people will see it than just the 9 people in here.
Yep, for sure.
Cool. Hey, Dano, tell us what you are struggling with lately.
Really, I've always struggled with this actually, and I've asked many people, and a lot of people give me different answers. And I guess I really haven't found anything that works well for me. But I struggle with post photo shoot organization, because it always seems like I'll shoot like an event, and then another event will pop up and I'll shoot that, and so I'm like, okay, I got really cool pictures from this event I just came from last night, but yet I really need to edit the ones that I did 3 days ago, and it's just like organizing between scheduling what I need to do, what's most important, and getting them all done. Because then I come out, shooting 3 events, and then I get none of them edited because I keep pushing a lot of them back and doing other things.
I may have a solution for you, but first let me ask: are these things that you do, are these for clients?
No, actually, it's mostly just people are like. Some of it's clients for other people, like they'll ask me to be the second camera. So sometimes I do have to hand it in to them, but mostly it's just for fun.
Okay, good.
Things I like to go to.
Well, then that makes my solution workable. Okay, so the problem is your attitude, but let me explain why. Maybe not in the way that usually sounds. So here's a different way to think about it. Because I have this problem in spades. I've got, I think, about 43,000 unprocessed photos. Inside my Lightroom, I have, well over 100,000 photos. I've chosen 42,000 photos as things I want to work on, okay? And this spans back many, many, many years of stuff. And I used to feel this burden. Like I would come back from a trip or an event and I would have this pile of photos and I think, oh my gosh, I got to get through this stuff. I got to get it processed so I can do the next thing. And then like if I had another event, it would be like more weight on my shoulders. And then it's kind of like this just unfortunate to-do list. I mean, that's why we get into photography, right? Because we're sick of the real world. We're sick of to-do lists. We're sick of responsibility. We just want to be free and take photos and share them with the world and be like a flitting little hummingbird all over the world. But you can't do that when you start, having these burdens of all these events you need to process. So instead, I started thinking about all of this. That instead of being a burden on me, I think of myself and my mind and my spirit or whatever as this this entity that will these photos will be very happy when I come visit them someday, right? So it's them, it's the photos that are waiting on me, and when I get to them, we'll have a nice time together, and I don't feel the burden anymore. I've reversed everything so that it's almost like having. So I have a pile of books to read, I have a pile of movies to watch, I have a pile of games to play, and I have a pile of photos to edit. And now we live in this world where you're really never bored anymore. I can't even remember what it was like to be bored, and I'm sure it's the same way with all you guys. Because you just have piles of awesome stuff to do all the time. If you have a spare 15 minutes, there's no limit as to what you can do with that 15 minutes. So I think, just like I have this pile of books, I think, it's awesome to have a pile of books that I want to read, and they're just sitting there waiting on me. And that's a good feeling. And you should transfer that feeling to your photos, because they'll be there when you get there, and it will unfold the way it's supposed to. And even better, another great bullet point is that if you process all your stuff right now, you will be doing it a disservice, because you're going to develop skills over the next 5 to 10 years that you won't want to come back and redo those photos. So like I've still got ones from Angkor Wat a long time ago, and if I had processed those all right away, now I know so much more than I did back then. I have much more different techniques that I think are more sophisticated, and so on and so forth. So now I can go back and give these photos the proper kind of love. So that's yet another reason. So you could try that.
Yeah, but what about pictures that I'm really excited about to share with other people? Like I'm even talking about those pictures. I mean, there got to becomes a point in time where you say, all right, I'm going to get this done because I want to put these up somewhere for people to, look at and share.
You're going to have exciting stuff from all of your shoots that you want to share, but this is really a good problem. If it's exciting to share now, it's also exciting to share later. And you can only do what you can do. People will be just as excited to see it now as later. And this is a good problem to have all this exciting stuff that you want to process. I've got 42,000 exciting things I want to process. I maybe someday I'll have a dry spell where I don't go out and shoot, and I can start working my way through this. But it's a wonderful problem to have, and don't let it be a burden. Let it be something amazing in your life.
I kind of have a problem when similar. I have all these images and exposures that I need to process, but for me, my memory plays a big role in how I process my photos. I kind of, try to make things feel as I remember it as most possible in my brain. You know what I mean? I try to make it feel as if I've captured that exact moment. Feel more real. And if I can't remember it,
then you're gonna have to start keeping a notebook again.
Yeah, but I mean, if I can't remember the tones and light and what everything actually looked like weeks down the road, then I'm just kind of
this is the problem with shooting film, is that you don't have EXIF data. You have to write everything down. and you're still left with this idea of what color was that sunset in the exact color, you know. So there is always an element of memory to what you're doing, and I think that therefore becomes the element of a creative or artistic license that you have to explain your version of the world to somebody else. Yeah, if you can remember a little something of it, that's good. But to you know, throw my 5 cents worth into this pot, I have a bag of films back in storage in the UK, which goes back to 1988. Okay, so I have there's 200, 300 rolls of film in that bag, which I haven't developed yet. They've been there in a fridge in somebody's house, and they'll still be fine. So it's always been a problem, and I think there is a good thing also about edit something now, show it to the world, and then you'll come back to it some other point and show another version of the world to the world, because that also allows you to see how you've progressed in your post-processing, or your processing. So I think that's also valid. Trey's advice is great. I think also that it doesn't matter if you come back to something and re-edit it again, because that gives you a yardstick as to how much your skills have progressed, because you can see the version you did 2 years ago and the version you've done now. I think workflow could be your situation, Dano, is maybe just improving your workflow so that when I come back from a shoot for a client, maybe I have 500-600 shots just from 15, 20 minutes or something, and I get them all up on the screen, and I do what I used to do when I was shooting film. Like when I put my slides or my negatives on the light box, they're 36 millimeters wide and 24 deep. Okay, that's the size I had to work at on film. So maybe I'd look at them through a magnifier, or maybe not. But that first pass of my eyes over my work is done at that sort of size. So I bring everything up as thumbnails, and if it hits me and makes an impact at the size of a transparency or a 35 millimeter negative, then it gets 5 stars and it progresses into the next stage of my workflow. Because sometimes trying to go through a whole load of pictures full screen, it just gets confusing. So bring them all up really small as thumbnails, like the size that you would see a 35 mil transparency on a light box, and look at them like that. And if they really hit you at that size, then it's worth taking them further.
I think another thing that may help me out too, I've been working in Lightroom for probably about 2 years now, but I really haven't dove into what all it has to offer as far as organizational things are concerned. So I think maybe that may help me a little bit in just, getting into messing around with things, all that it has to offer.
True, although I don't really tag my images with keywords.
Yeah, that's interesting.
It's good, I think, to delve into these things, but generally, I mean, the top level of my organization is just a file taxonomy, a way of classifying things that is enough for me to pull a picture out of the vault if somebody finds one on the web and says to me, hey, have you got a high-res version of this? And that's simply keep the original file name. There is a suffix and a prefix. And if, my Nikon's gone around the clock maybe 20 times, so that the maximum number of versions I'm going to find on my computer of that file name will be 20. But I don't tend to spend loads of time tagging my images with keywords and everything else unless I'm going to put them into stock, when obviously that becomes important.
That is one feature I wish Lightroom had, was like some sort of a search. So if I wanted to search for keywords, if I was looking for a certain photo.
It does, doesn't it? You can search for keywords.
Yeah, it does.
It does.
You have to have it. You have to have it in the view with the multiple thumbnails, though. You can't search if you're looking at one large file. You have to have it in the thumbnail view to be able to search.
Right.
Where is it? Where's the search box?
It's up at the top. If you go to I think it's if you go to metadata. It's when you can put in different filters for searching. When you do that, there's a keyword, and it's just like a text entry field, and then you can search. And if you do keyword or tag your files or anything like that, then you can search through that. You can also search through metadata if it'll automatically recognize lenses and things like that. You can pull up all that kind of information through there.
I'm still a Lightroom newbie. I've only been using it for like maybe 6 months now, but that just seems really confusing. I want like a box that says search, done.
That's basically what it is. You just need, like, I agree, it's not the best, but you need to be in the right, window for it, and then it is simple. I did have one question kind of on that vein, though, to Trey, about how you were mentioning your, the number of files that you're dealing with. Do you break up by catalog, or do you just have one massive catalog in Lightroom?
No, I've got many catalogs spread across many drives, and it's quite a problem. It's a problem, right? And I do have a workflow that I've described many times. I won't go through it all right now because that's sort of a rat hole. But I think generally people should kind of roll their own workflow and find something that works for them. I find a little too often, and I don't know, maybe I shouldn't say this because it sounds bad, but I always find people really want to know my workflow, and I feel like, well, the question is malformed because you don't want to know my workflow because you need to do your own workflow. And the thing is that a good workflow changes every 6 months as you get new hard drives, as you get new tools, as you have more incoming files, and then so your personal workflow should be sort of an iterative thing that you improve on over time. It's a little bit hard to explain why I think that, but I think I understand the basis of the questions. People just feel like utterly, maybe that's too overdramatic, but they just feel kind of lost and completely unorganized and random. They're like, I don't even know where to begin. So maybe in that sense, it's nice to describe a workflow because people might be able to take that and modify it to their own world. So I understand the nature of the question, but I don't have a good answer.
Yeah,
do you put any cloud technology like Dropbox or anything in your workflow?
I don't. I have too many files for a good cloud solution. I wish I did. Yeah, it gets expensive, and it's slow to upload, just terabytes of stuff. So that is a little bit of a problem. Do you guys use any cloud backup solutions that you like?
Nope.
Not as a backup. I mean, I delivered files to clients in various ways through Dropbox, but I don't cloud backup.
I don't use the cloud
at all.
I've been considering buying a Drobos.
Yeah.
And just
that.
I mean, I have like a couple terabyte external hard drives, but those things are not super reliable.
I'm a fan of Drobo. They're amazing. Basically.
Yeah, I really want a Drobos.
So what's particularly interesting about a Drobos versus another?
Unswappable.
It'll tell you when it's about to die.
Well, I'm just saying there's lots of other network attached storage devices that.
Oh, this isn't like a online storage or anything like that. It's just it's like an external hard drive, but it's like a smarter one. It'll actually let you know when it's struggling or when it's gonna crash. Kind of like it pre-warns you basically that you need to get everything off of it. But it'll have multiple drives in one little box.
That sounds cool.
It's pretty neat.
Yeah, it's smart. It's smarter than a typical RAID, I think, because you can put in any size drive.
Yeah.
It's kind of idiot-proof. I have 3 Drobos. I like them, but Drobos still are not the best solution because they're these big, heavy things that you have to carry around because you don't want to leave them all in your house. So you have to swap them between friends and have maybe multiple Drobos so that you can. And it reminds me, I used to go to these LAN parties all the time to play Quake and stuff, and I would carry around these giant 17-inch monitors, into this guy's garage. I was like, oh my gosh! And so I'm sure I'll look back on 2011 and go, remember when I used to carry Drobos around?
Okay, so some photographer needs to partner with Drobo and design a better photographer's storage. That's what needs to happen.
Yeah, that would be nice, wouldn't it? It'd be real nice. Hey, let me give you guys a little tour of this place I'm in because it's kind of awesome.
Yeah.
Tour time.
Here we go.
A walkabout.
welcome back. Let me click on my own thing here and get rid of chat. Okay. So,
make sure you unplug.
So I can't. Some stuff I won't show you because it's probably too sensitive.
Oh, come on.
So here's like kind of the table where I've been set up and working. I've kept half my life over on the table, but really I've been hanging out here. Gosh, it's so dark. I'm sorry. Maybe it will adjust here. It's very homey, kind of a low ceiling type thing. It's got an awesome speaker system, and so I've had my iPod in there just kind of jamming out all over the place. Here's, gosh, it's dark. I'm sorry. Here's one of the front doors. There's a giant wine rack there. Here's one of the outside areas. Let me go to the brighter outside area. This is the hallway that leads down to the master bedroom with this redonkulous shower. Here, let's go outside because he's got these sort of Japanese gardens, multiple levels, lots of shrubbery. So here we are outside, and there's like TVs and everything out here. Whoa. He's got this nice kind of rock fountain with it makes this gentle sort of trickling sound all the time. And then as you walk around out here, if you walk down another 1/8 of a mile or so around the corner of the house, they have hot tubs and all kinds of stuff. Up here, I don't know if you can, gosh, it's so dark, I'm sorry. I should have done this earlier in the day, but there are stairs that lead up the side of the hills. We're in the Hollywood Hills here, and it goes all the way up into this little bamboo forest. And in the bamboo forest, there are just like little seats and little Buddha statues and little thatched roof places you can sit down and chill out. So you can like take a nature walk all on the property. Here, I'll walk here into the, I don't want to get too far from the Wi-Fi either. That would be a problem.
Devastating.
Get dropped off in your
kitchen. And he had a little bit of water damage because of a flood, so I've been cooking some spices and stuff, and I've been like incredibly lonely in here. It's very weird being in a giant place all by yourself. And so I've been, I haven't been cooking, but I put these spices on, so it makes me feel like maybe somebody is here cooking for me, so I don't get so lonely. Anyway, that's the briefest of tours. So I'm really trying to figure out a good place to take a photo that makes it look awesome. So I'm going to keep surveying it for the next few days, and I'll try to make a little behind-the-scenes video of how I set up. And let me just ask you guys a question real quick. I'll just pick two random people to answer, and I'll assume that you're. So I've been making these really quick videos with the iPad. Just really low tech, very low production quality, where I talk about how I'm set up and whatever the hell I talk about. But I see a lot of other people put like really high production quality stuff out there all the time. But I'm just quick and dirty. I do it myself. So is that interesting to you guys, or should I have like a little team with me that's making it all look all slick and overproduced and this sort of thing?
I think it's great. I mean,
as long as the content's there.
Yeah.
The rest is just
that's what I was.
Your point's coming across in every one of them.
Yeah, okay. I was gonna say, you can have all the quality in the world. It's kind of like having a high budget movie and it's just a dud. As long as your content is good, the content is going to outweigh, in my eyes, it's going to outweigh quality any day of the week.
And this is the YouTube generation too, so we're used to low quality, I think, now.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I think you connect better with your readers and your viewers too.
Oh, it's more personal.
You just feel like you're right there with you. It's just you, and I don't know. I'm thinking of your one in Paris in particular, and I thought that was great.
Okay.
I feel like I learned something, and so.
Yeah, I really enjoyed your one in was it like Finland or Norway or something.
Oh, in Iceland?
Iceland, maybe, yeah. That was a really good one.
Oh, good. Okay, well, I'll keep doing them. All right. Okay, we can stop talking about me now. Let's, you know, have you ever had these conversations with people and you don't really want to talk about yourself? You're like, well, enough about me. Let's talk about me. So.
Yeah, but,
No,
but
never. I always
you
want
are
to talk
marketing, so you have to be able to get a good voice from everyone, so you can critique yourself somewhat.
Yeah. No, I don't. You know, you guys know I don't take myself too seriously. So anyway, we've been talking about stuff you're struggling with, and we have our two new entrants here. Jordan, what have you been struggling with lately?
I would say in general, distribution and I don't know, just getting things out there is probably the most difficult. I've been shooting largely HDR for a long time. I can't really complain about distribution that much. I actually just probably 10 minutes before sneaking into this finished writing the introduction for a photo book that's being published next spring. So I mean, I feel that if I can get into things that are as organized as that, it's definitely out there, but really getting a foothold in, I guess, social media, which really seems one of the better ways to get out there. And I mean, it's really, you know, huge potential for exposure worldwide, really. But it definitely takes some getting into and just constantly working on that. But I really do, as a lot of people have said, really like Google+. And I mean, it seems like a really well done thing, especially for photographers. I feel like it's being utilized by photographers better than, you know, nearly any other profession out there right now.
Yeah, it's nice. I just looked, and you've got you know, several hundred followers, and the thing is just to just, you know, stay out there and keep putting out good art, and eventually it will bubble up. And you know, this is just the beginning. I think a lot of people feel like it's a super mature place and it's too late for me, and but you know, we're all kind of in this bubble. But a very, very small percentage of the world has high-speed internet. You know, something like only 30% of the 7 billion people on Earth have internet at all, and only about half of those have any decent bandwidth to consume media. So, you know, over the next 5 or 10 years, you know, billions more people will be online. This percentage will get bigger and bigger, and even with just a couple hundred people, you know, you're way ahead of the curve. You know, don't compare yourself to other people, because this is all sort of anomalous. But you're doing just fine, and just keep sharing, be open, and you're on the. It feels like you're way behind, but believe me, you're way ahead. It's a long story.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of what it is with Google+. I feel like exposure just comes with content, while in a lot of other places you needed to really put yourself out there in other ways. It seems as part of the decision that I had to make, I guess, was I have, you know, many more pictures than what I post. I try and post maybe between 1 and 3, you know, images a day or something like that, is not to overwhelm people and to, you know, constantly have new content that is coming in. And I feel like you said, I mean, with regular additions to what I have, people are maintaining interest. And I mean, I'm not gaining followers, you know, in huge bunches, but it is definitely a consistent growth, and it does feel like there's a lot of potential to come for sure.
Yeah, I agree. Hey, Jim, how have you been doing lately on Google+, and has it been a nice ride for you? And what do you think about all this?
No, I think it's great. The community here is really open, it's very willing to share. You know, everybody's. I mean, you know, the whole Facebook thing, you know, whatever. But here, it seems you really have a good place to open up to people. I mean, you know, I'm talking with people that I've never met before, and I think that's really good. Yeah, it's one of those things where at first you jump in and you kind of want to get it going as fast as you can, but once you realize that you just, you know, you sit down and you jump on for the ride, and you'll eventually get where you want to go. You know. Yeah.
Hey, tell me about your. So I noticed that your images, you put Jim Davis Photography down at the bottom, like, but in a black bar. outside of the frame. You don't put it on top of the photo. Tell me about your decision process for why you went that direction.
Well, over time, I've done it in a few different ways, and I'm trying to figure out what a person that might want to buy a print, or what they would like. I've tried doing the signature on the inside, kind of like a watermark over the image.
Right.
With this, it's one of those things where I've tried to create something that people would associate with me.
Right.
And I really did question, are people going to want to see that big down at the bottom, the Jim Davis photography? Is that going to be something that somebody might get tired of? Or, yeah, I don't know. So I'm still trying to feel that out.
Right. So when they buy a print, it actually says that on the bottom of the print.
Well, not necessarily. No, I have a sample gallery where I put all those frames around.
Right.
In other galleries, I don't have anything on them at all. And then, I still have to decide whether I'm going to, obviously, if you're selling online, you're generally not going to meet your client, so you can't sign them firsthand. So I have to make that decision. So depending on the type of product that you're selling, if I'm selling a poster that's going to be framed, then I'm not going to put that on there.
I kind of like that, though. I mean, just like I'm looking at the one you have of the canyon, and I kind of like the way it's. I mean, if I was going to put up a big picture like that, I mean, I would actually post the person's name because I think it's a fantastic photo. So I don't know. I mean, I guess some people like it without, but I think I like it. It's kind of like it kind of, it's a little different. I don't see a lot of people doing that.
Yeah. It's one of those things, I guess, where I'm trying to create like I said before, an association with my name and the photograph, and also the kind of the tagline that I use is nature through my eyes. I don't know. I've tried a few different things, and I've toyed with, just putting the name of where it is, or do I exchange that for my name? What do I do? So I mean, for the most part, I'm looking for feedback on that type of thing as well.
Yeah, that's
Guys,
interesting.
I gotta go, unfortunately. Sorry to jump in, but
okay, no problem.
Get some work done. Thanks for this, man. First hangout. It's good to hang out with you guys. So
sure. Yeah. You bet. Thank you, Alfie. Bye.
Take it easy. See you later.
Take care.
Oh, good. RC Concepcion has joined. I've been waiting for this guy,
nice.
and waiting for Godot. RC, you are in a dark room. Where are you? Are you in the barrio? Hey, Google Plus calling over. Come in, RC Concepcion. Are you okay?
What's up, man?
Oh, here we go. The dulcet tones waft across the hangout as you arrive.
What you're looking for.
How are you, RC?
Good, man. Good, man. How are you?
Good. Wait, it's very late there. Are people sleeping in your house? You have sleeping women in there, yes?
Oh, yeah, no, dude. I'm just in my office, so it works out well.
All right. Cool. How are you doing tonight?
Good. Good. I was just listening on Justin TV for a little bit.
How was the signal? I haven't. It's hard for me to watch live. Is it okay?
It's pretty cool. It's not bad. And we'll just see if this thing will just pick up a different.
Well, what have you been up to lately, RC? You're always doing interesting things. You say not much, but to most people, you have the life of a photography rock star. So. I know these things are mundane to you, but go ahead and tell us one of these mundane things that most people will find like, oh, that sounds cool.
Actually, right now I'm just working on a couple of different just book ideas and DVDs and things like that. I spend a lot of time working on doing training for Photoshop. So most of the stuff that I'm working on right now is just kind of getting things up and running for my next set of books or my next set of videos. So I spend most of my days now just kind of playing with different ideas and just kind of going, all right, well, does this look cool? Does this, is this something that people would be interested in? And, just trying out different photographic projects.
And you have a new HDR book out. Tell us about that so people can, just in case they don't know, I think we should talk about it.
Oh, okay. So I set up an HDR book. I was doing actually here, let me try this. Let me see if this works. Try to see if trying to trick the camera into doing something here.
You did trick the camera because it's staying still on your image. Oh, it's very dark now. Now you look very mysterious.
All right. Don't listen to the voice. Anyway, we'll work on that at some point. So, but it was I wanted to set up a book, and I actually had gotten together with you, with Trey, talking about HDR, and I was a big fan of Trey's work and a lot of the stuff that he had done there. But one of the things that, one of the experiences that I have is I spend a lot of time playing in Photoshop. So I play a lot in Photoshop, play a lot in Lightroom, and I wanted to be able to kind of make something that spoke specifically to the post-processing of, your HDR images. More often than not, I think that the dirty little secret in working with HDR is that you need to be able to work with these images, and you need to be able to do post-processing in these images. So I wanted to set up a book that kind of just dealt with that part specifically, that said, all right, this is what you need to do to your images. This is how you need to be able to post-process them. And it's done pretty good. I'm pretty excited about it.
And what's the name of the book?
The HDR Book.
The HDR Book. All right, and it's on Amazon and your local bookstore and all that stuff, right?
Yeah, you can get it on Amazon. You can get it in Barnes and Nobles. You can get it over at Kelby Training. So there's a bunch of different things.
And when are you going around and doing anything with Peach Pit for the book? Are they had some big event, didn't they, where they brought you out, and what was that like?
Yeah, there's a couple of different events that we do. I mean, a lot of the times we kind of, because we work for Kelby Media Group and Scott Kelby and that organization, a lot of the stuff that we do from a promo and publicity, we tend to do ourselves. So, we're taking ourselves out to events. Like most recently, in a couple of weeks, we're going to be going out to Photoshop World. So we'll be spending a lot of time there. So it's a good time. It's done very, very well without me having to run to different places to sit at a book signing. I'm very, very grateful for that. The internet's helped out quite a bit for this kind of stuff.
Well, that's good. I wish I could talk you into writing an ebook for me at flatbooks.com, and we could become great together.
Trey, I love you, man. We need to talk, man. We need to talk.
We got to do it. Come on, man. It's the way to go. Lisa Bettany's doing a book for Flat Books. It's going to be awesome.
I love Lisa.
Everyone loves her. Yeah. Anyway, we'll talk about it. I'll talk you into it. I'm very persuasive, RC. Just give me a chance.
So somebody was just talking about signatures and logo type on the lower right hand corner.
Yeah.
One of the things that I tell people about that kind of stuff is when you put your images online, more often than not, anytime that you put a picture of something that has a text layer on it, there's a certain level of and there's no better way to say this than a plain way, but it seems very low rent when you do that.
It does.
When you take your images and you just all of a sudden you just create a layer in Photoshop, you put it in the lower right hand corner. But think of it this way: anytime that you see any kind of art piece, whenever you see an art piece, you treat this art piece as an art piece by seeing a signature. A signature is always we associate authenticity. We associate something that's official with the use of a signature. So what I usually like to do is take a look at this picture that's over here in the chat. Right. So you'll see this picture, and more often than not, if I'm going to use any kind of logo type, what I'll do is I'll set it up so that a signature is a portion of what it is that I'm doing. Sometimes if you're working with an image, what I'll do is I'll go and let's say take a stack of copy paper, use a thin Sharpie or different various lengths of Sharpie, sign on this sheet of paper. You sign a whole bunch of times so that you can get a really, really good signature out of one of them. Then you take the image, you take that sheet of paper and you scan it in Photoshop. Take the signature that you want and then select that so that that's the only thing that you have on a transparent background. Then when you place that on your images, so, and Trey would attest to this kind of stuff, that, people looking at prints and buying prints and looking at all that kind of stuff, it's a very, very psychological process. So a lot of the times people that are looking to buy these things, they're looking for this level of authenticity. So you placing a signature on a lower right-hand corner says so much more about that image then the letter C, which is pretty obvious. It's your picture. It's copyrighted. You know, there's no. I don't think that the letter C is something that people should put on their images, and it shows that you have that kind of added level of sophistication on the image, and that translates to how people perceive your image. That translates to how people are going to pay for your image. So something as simple as that would be something that I would think that you should consider.
Yeah, I like that a lot. The signature is very smart, and I'll tell you one variation that I do on that, because I do sign my really high-end print, the one that sell for thousands and thousands of dollars. Now, the signature is actually burned into a special JPEG that's sent off for printing. But what I do is I do have a layer, a signature layer, that I bring into the photo, but then I make a new layer, and I have a Wacom tablet, and I sign right on top of the layer. So it's always a little bit unique, and I can always get the size just about right, and they're always pretty much the same. But that way, you know, if collectors ever really want to compare, they'll see that my signature is a little bit different for everyone, and I take the time. I figure if someone's going to be paying thousands and thousands of dollars, it's worth my time to go and take my time to sign something unique just for them. So that's my little variation on your thing.
Nice. I like that.
I have a question.
Yes.
What if you have an ugly signature?
Well, you need to reinvent your signature. That's easy. You're young. How old are you? 20, 21? You got time.
I might look like that, but
what constitutes an ugly signature?
I have the ugliest signature, man. I don't know why, but it's just it's BK too, so it's like it's just kind of B scribble K scribble, and it's like Burger King guy. Like, so I guess I need to reinvent my signature if I
mix it up. You could probably, I bet you could jump on 99 Designs and say like, this is my name. People make a cool signature for me, and then you'll just emulate that, because it doesn't, it doesn't have to be your handwriting. You'll learn to use that handwriting, because that's about the only time I write anymore at all. I'm always on a keyboard. In fact, every now and then when I have to write a Post-it note, I'm like, I feel like a fifth grader. Like, how do you make that letter again? So, yeah, you can reinvent your own signature.
What was the name of that site again? 500?
No, 99designs.com.
Also, keep in mind that
you're well lit, but we
also,
can't hear you.
Look at it this way.
Yeah.
If you want to take your photography to a point where you're going to be doing a print sale. Oh, let's see. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we're good. We're good.
Let's see. How about now? Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Perfect. All right. So I was going to say, at the same time, if you want to, let's say you want to all of a sudden turn around, and the sum of all of this stuff is to be able to sell a print at one point or another. So if you're going to sell a print and you're going to need to be able to send to somebody, you're going to have to sign a print regardless. So if it's something that you're going to need to do, not too long ago in art school and things like that, people would actually practice their signatures. So that's something that you probably should seriously consider. Just sit down with a bunch of sheets of paper and just kind of work one out. It's worth it. It's going to be what's going to identify you as a person. So
it's kind of funny is like I actually took calligraphy lessons when I was growing up, and I learned how to do like really pretty good calligraphy, but I ended up with the worst signature ever out of everyone I've ever met. Like, it's just ugly.
Well, don't worry about it. That's a solvable problem, Beau. There's unsolvable problems. That one's easy to solve.
I think just practice.
Hey, RC, one thing that a lot of people have been sharing, because I'm interested in it, is what are you currently struggling with your photography? Because I think people think, especially pros like you, it's all unicorns and rainbows, but there's always a struggle. At least I think good artists like you are always putting yourself in somewhat uncomfortable situations. So what's something that's been flummoxing you lately?
I think that one of the biggest things that I probably struggle with is the overall execution plan when working with things. We get as photographers, what'll happen is you get from a point like we were talking, like I was listening earlier in the Justin TV, and Dana was talking about, I do this one shoot, then I do this shoot, and then I do this shoot, then I do this shoot, then I can't process this shoot. Sometimes you'll get past that. at one point. And what's going to happen is you'll get to a point where you'll turn around and you'll say, all right, this is what I want to be known for. These are the 5 things that I want to work with and the 10 things that I want to work with. And you'll stop measuring how good you do as a photographer on how you lit this one specific event or this one specific thing. And you'll start looking at it more from, did I have an idea that set in my head, and was I able to execute that idea clearly, succinctly? And I think
more
that,
speaking of an amateur or professional, though?
what was that?
Is that more speaking for amateur or professional, though?
I think everybody should hold themselves to that standard. I don't think that that's a separator between an amateur and a professional. You should have a clear idea of where you're going with that, right? So you should say, I want to shoot these 5 things. I want to take care of these 5 things and just work on those 5 things. So for me, what happens is I tend to look at something and I go, the hardest problem that I have is I say, I want to be able to do these portraits or these, landscapes or these events or capture this one moment. And I see the idea very, very clearly in my head, but then all of the logistics that needs to happen to be able to make that one print get in the way. And I think that that's the hardest. That's the thing that I struggle with the most right now. And that's not to say, how do I get a helicopter to get on top of a mountain to be able to, do this kind of stuff. It's just, it could be something as simple as I want to be able to make a portrait. Like I'm working on some portraits right now in a portrait series. And I want to be able to get a picture of a person in front of this home, almost kind of like they're defending their home. And it's like the execution of that. It's like, why am I looking at that? I start with, why this is something that I want to be able to do. And I carve out that idea and I look at, how to be, what's going to be the thing that's going to be the most motivating behind that. Then after I do that, then I go, all right, well, do I need a model? Do I need a location? Do I need this? Do I have a friend? Do I have a place that I can drive to on multiple occasions to be able to do that? So photographers, it's one of those things that a lot of people don't talk about in photography. There are so many different moving pieces to actually making a picture other than this motion.
Yeah.
And having to solidify all of that stuff is probably the hardest part for me. That's the part that I struggle with. I see these ideas in my head. Like I had an idea of a picture of a guy in a diner. Sounds easy enough, right? Go to diner, find guy, take picture.
Right.
But it's, why? What's the motivation? What am I looking for? Where am I going to be able to go? How many diners am I going to go scout before I find this kind of stuff? How many diners can I scout based on the amount of time that I actually have to be able to create that project? So anytime that you produce a piece, it's all of these different things that need to be measured against the amount of time that you have. And I think that that's the biggest struggle that I have right now. It's putting all of those different pieces together to be able to make the print.
Yeah, I can appreciate that. That was well said. What do you, speaking of struggles, let me ask you, maybe this will be kind of a final question, and we'll wrap things up. But as long as you're on here, I want to pick your brain, because you have this wide breadth and depth of just interactions in this world that I'm not privy to. So tell me about, since you teach so much Photoshop, and this is one of your bailiwicks, what do you see as, I don't want to call them a student, but someone that's learning Photoshop, what is one of their biggest hang-ups, or what's preventing them from really embracing Photoshop? Because a lot of people struggle with it. You know this. They really, there's a block there. What is it inside of people that is causing them this distress when it comes to Photoshop? And how have you helped them, or how could they help themselves overcome this block?
I think that one of the biggest problems that people have, and I was just taking a look at the Justin TV chat, we were talking about that. I think that the biggest problem that people have with it is that they see all of what Photoshop can do, right? So somebody turns around and they go, oh, you know what? Photoshop is really, really hard for me to be able to get to. Photoshop's hard for me to be able to understand. it's such a big program. Where do you start? When truthfully, the biggest thing that you need to be able to do when you're working with it is just to be able to say, what are the kinds of things that I need to be able to solve in post? You know, when I shoot something, when I take that into my computer, what are the 5 things that I'm unhappy with? You know, if you're unhappy with exposure or contrast or these kinds of things, and then make a list of these kinds of things that you need to be able to work with, and then learn what tricks in Photoshop are going to help you solve those problems. Because if what happens is you'll go, well, in order for me to be a better photographer, I need to go learn Photoshop. But Photoshop's got stuff for medical examiners. Photoshop's got stuff for interior designers. It's got stuff for scientists. It's got stuff for people who do notation. It does 3D animation. So there's all of these different things. And somebody turns around and go, all right, you know what? I'm just going to go learn. They go to Borders and they get themselves a giant Bible. They put it in front of them and they go, all right, page 1. And you do that, and all of a sudden it becomes a very frustrating process. And it's one of those things where it doesn't have to be. You know, you can learn the things that you need to do to your images in Photoshop in an hour, in 2 hours. You know, like, to your credit, learning. If you go to stuckincustoms.com, you can learn the tutorial for how to be able to process HDRs in no time. So what a lot of the times you need to be able to do is you need to be able to go, forget about the technology. The technology is supposed to solve a problem. Sit down and make a concerted list of what your problems are. And once you know what your problems are, then go, how does this piece of technology solve it? You know, and that's one of those things that social media is great for, that kind of stuff. You know, my stuff has poor contrast. How do I do it? You'll jump online, people go, oh, well, you know, you make an adjustment layer in Photoshop. All right, well, what's an adjustment layer in Photoshop? Now you can learn one thing to be able to make that better.
Yeah, that's a very good way of saying it. I appreciate that. Yeah, you know, I appreciate you too. Hey, Keith, I've been kind of vaguely watching the chat over in the live stream. Has there been any questions anybody has before we wrap this thing up? Or while you're looking for questions there, how about anyone else in the Hangout? Do you have any burning questions that I can help you with, or someone else can help you with?
Well, the question I just asked was, does anybody use any other tools for manipulating their images other than Photoshop? Or is Photoshop pretty much the standard everybody's using?
I use usually 3 different programs. I will use Lightroom, Photoshop, and the Nikon software Capture NX. So depending on what I want to do, I will switch between them.
Hey, Jim, what do you use Capture NX for, if you have those other things?
But it's a proprietary program for the Nikon software, and I find that certain things it does a really good job of, and a lot of it is, I find it very effective for doing local editing, boosting contrast in certain areas of the image, or bringing up certain things that I like in very local parts of the image. And I'm sure that you can. I know you can do that in Lightroom, and I know you can do that in Photoshop. But I just kind of, I guess, I've adapted a technique in there that I find very, very helpful.
So you're just used to Capture NX. Let me ask RC that, because you're a Nikon guy like us, right, RC? Yep. So and you're like a mega expert in Lightroom. Is there anything that you can do in Capture NX that you can't do in Lightroom?
There isn't. The short of it is that there isn't. But the problem that you run into it with is when you take a picture inside of your camera, right? Your camera's going to turn around and your camera's going to try to process this image. So what will happen is, if you're making a JPEG file, it demosaics, it sharpens, it contrasts, it saturates, it applies all of this kind of special sauce on top of this image to be able to make the image that you're going to get. If you're shooting in a RAW format, more often than not, you'll bring this into Lightroom, you'll see a thumbnail of something that looks really, really cool for a split second, and then Lightroom turns around and goes, they take all of that stuff and they throw it away, and they give you a very vanilla version because they assume that you're going to do all of that processing for you. That's good for me, but sometimes I want to be able to kind of work faster. Sometimes I like what the back of that camera does, because that back of, the camera rocks. It does some really cool stuff. So sometimes for me, what I like to be able to do is I like to run stuff through Capture and X, because Capture and X is going to know, for the lack of a better word, it's going to know the secret sauce that this camera was able to process. So the images are going to be more faithful to what you have with your camera. Lightroom does have camera profiles that approximate the best way to be able to do that, but they're not 100%, and they're probably not going to be. And this is, speaking as a true Lightroom guy. So sometimes if I need to be able to kind of really process quickly, I'll just shoot in JPEG, because then the camera does the heavy lifting. If I need to be able to speed up a RAW file, I'll jump into Capture and X. But more often than not, I usually do it in Lightroom and Photoshop.
All right, cool. Good answer, RC. Hey, there is a question. We'll take this one last question from the chat room. They said, did Trey and RC, let me see who actually asked this. It was John Kaminsky. He said, did Trey and RC learn everything from trial and error, or did they sit down with someone like a mentor? I'll answer, and then hand it to you, RC. I am totally self-taught, but this is my personality. I don't impose this on other people necessarily, although I do encourage people to kind of spiral off in their own direction and make a lot of mistakes. And but this is very difficult advice for me to give sometimes, because I think it is based so much on your brain and how you learn. Like, for example, this is probably an awful example, but maybe it's a good analog. When I'm pretty self-disciplined when it comes to exercise, right? And I go out and run on my own. Like when I'm feeling chubby or whatever, I'm like, I got to go run. I got to get on the situation. And I go out and I try to take care of myself physically. I start eating better and this sort of thing, right? So anyway, I go exercise on my own, just like I go learn photos on my own. But my wife, she likes to go to classes, right? She likes to go to aerobics class or a Pilates class. It starts at a certain time where they have a teacher and there's a template and there's other people doing it. And also that's how she likes to learn things. So it's not better or worse. It's just a different kind of a brain. So in some ways, I don't mean it to be a disservice by saying that I've never read a book or I never had a teacher. I'm totally self-taught. But if maybe that is your kind of personality and that's the way you feel like you like to learn, and you eschew most teachers or most systems, then it's a perfectly valid way to go about learning photography. How about you, RC? Because did you have a similar path to me, or sort of a mixture between self-taught and teachers, or what?
Yeah, actually, you know what? Most of the photography stuff that I did was self-taught. I was telling this on a couple of hangouts that I had done. My background's actually in education. I was a high school English teacher when I started a long time ago, and I went from actually teaching high school, Shakespeare literature and things like that, to working at IBM and doing a lot of technology stuff. So I did a lot of high technology. Then I was a systems architect, and I just kind of went down the technology hole for a while. Moved to Germany, did technology there for a while, for a couple of years. But in the process of all of that stuff, I'd always have a camera with me, and photography was just kind of one of those things that was a hobby. And, through trial and error, through playing around with that stuff, my photography started getting a little bit better. But being involved in so much technology from a very, very young career standpoint, I had always had experience with Photoshop. I was doing a lot of stuff that was in the web field. So I spent a lot of time in Macromedia products and Adobe products. And I used to get bored in tech stuff. So at night I would go to technology schools and groups and things like that and teach, which would expose me to different problems that people would have. People would come over and go, I have this problem. There's something, I'm trying to figure this out on a camera. And I'm like, well, let's go ahead and take a look at this. And the more problems that I solve for other people, the better my stuff got. So it was just kind of like this big fusion of, a literature background, a teaching background, and trial and error that kind of meshed together, to be able to create this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think that's I think that's nice. I'm always very curious about how people learn, because you know, I don't teach as much as you do. That's really, I try to spend maybe 5 or 10% of the year kind of teaching, but I always try to, and if it's one-on-one, it's a different situation than a crowd, but I always try to quickly kind of psychoanalyze who I'm talking to and figure out how their mind works, and then bend my answers in such a way so that it can easily flow into their mind. But then when you talk to big crowds of people, you have to say kind of more generic stuff that could be more generally accepted. Because people are, I think the thing is that people are perfectly willing to teach themselves everything, but they don't have much time, and they just want some quick things to hang their hat on to get started. And so I always, you know, I think about this stuff a lot. I'm sure not to the extent that you do, but it's an interesting subject.
Yeah, you know what?
I think I just got kicked out of the. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It isn't full. It must be a technical problem on Google's side. Oh, there we go.
1% of your life, and I don't know what that is really. I tell you though, it does have something to do with making a lot of mistakes and getting to know yourself with that process. And if it's just something that you feel like you want to do, not that you're reaching for something, right? There's a difference. Like, I feel I'm feeling unsettled. I need a hobby. I'm just going to start reaching for things, you know, like a kid does for a guitar lessons, or they get into skateboarding. You just kind of reach for things until you find something that really makes sense for you. Maybe you start by kind of like, maybe I'm interested in photography. Like, kind of like taking pictures. I think I want to take better pictures. And then if this snowballs enough, at some point, it's a little bit like falling in love. It's sort of a gentle, you don't know how it happens. But at some point, you notice that this person you love, they do these little things with their eyes, or they do these things they may not even realize that you find endearing, and you can't get enough of. And it's the same thing with photography. You just fall in love with it, and you can't really find that exact point at which that happened.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good answer.
Yeah, it was average, really. Let's be frank.
I thought it was a pretty good answer.
I figure if you can leave it alone, then that's not meant to be. But if you keep like coming back to it, that's probably when you need to kick it in gear.
Yeah, I gotcha. Hey, you got back in, Keith. Good job.
Nice work,
Yeah,
Keith.
fine. Got right back in. Everything's fine.
Well, you got back in just in time for me to close this son of a gun down. But now I could do so with alacrity and in a nice way, so it's not so abrupt. But thank you, everybody, for coming. Thanks, Beau and Jim and Dano and Jordan and Keith very much, because you did a lot of the hard work here. And Melvin, good getting to know you, and Michael Riffle,
Yes,
and
know you too.
And Shirly Lo, it's always good to see you. And thank you for the surprise visit by our Concepcion. That was fantastic.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
Okay, guys. Well, bye, and I'll see you around. Thanks.
Take care, man. Night.
All right, see you later.